You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Faith. Now, Faith, is your last name really West?
It is.
So are you related to Adam West?
Of course.
Oh my goodness, we got a special guest here today. So tell me a little bit about yourself, Faith, and what do you do professionally?
So I am a mom of two awesome teenagers and been married for 18 years to my amazing husband. I work at a bank and do all kinds of fun things there.
What types of things do you really do in the bank?
Anything and everything you can possibly think.
I always find it I would not be suited for a bank because I like money, but at the same time, I don't know, I wouldn't trust myself.
It's not too hard. If you like your job, it's not that difficult.
Because the weird thing is you're dealing with people's money, and people tend to get a little bit creepy when it comes to the money aspect. Like, I work in a hotel, and they get very, very kind of attached to their tips. So sometimes I'll go into a room that someone will leave open after they check out, and I'll strip it, which is my job, which is taking the sheets and the trash. And they literally will be like, "Did you open up this door?" I'm like, "No." And they'll be like, "Where's the money that was on the table?" I was like, there wasn't any. It's taken them years to understand, I don't touch tips. I just leave it on the counter. I'm like, "You have to go in there and get it. I don't touch it. I don't care about the money. I get paid by the hour."
Yeah. Yeah, that's about how I feel. I don't really, it's just there and it's my customers. So I just leave it be.
So how do you go from working to a bank to starting a podcast called Momma Bear Connects?
So my family and I have been through a lot of stuff in our life, and my daughter and I just thought it would be really awesome to to start a podcast that kind of shows what a good, healthy parent child relationship and role really are. Not to say that I'm a perfect parent, but we've lived through a lot in our life together as a family, and so we just thought it'd be really cool to get a teenager's point of view with the mom's point of view and vice versa on different topics and hard topics.
Well, problem is nowadays families aren't connected anymore. It's a big influence from social media, big influence in just overall overwhelmingness of life, I would say. Family dinners, the average family that used to eat dinner 7 times a week, they do it an average of 3 times a week. It's we're totally disconnected as people, especially with our own family. You don't want to sit and talk to your own parents anymore. You don't want to talk to your kids anymore because you're not involved in their life that much.
Yeah. And we feel that, we see that a lot with our children's friendships. They usually end up at our house to connect with us, my husband and myself, for that adult interaction, to kind of vent their hard things and stuff. A lot of the kids will call me Mama Faith, and so they refer to me very highly, I guess, as their adult person in their life. So it's pretty cool.
They have faith in their mother. There's nothing wrong with that.
That is very true.
I think it's for me, being a kid, I'm 21 years old. So through my childhood, my parents worked 2 jobs. They were constantly working, where I built the structure around an Xbox. I built the structure around things that you shouldn't structure yourselves on.
Right.
I still remember having family dinners. I still remember eating with the family at dinner and stuff, but it was we were just shoveling the food down until we got to a certain point. Now that I'm older, I look back at those moments and I do miss them, because now there are times they try and reconnect now, but it's like I'm now trying to do my own thing where before I didn't have the option to. I didn't have the ability to go drive a car. I didn't have the ability to go out and explore the world on my own. I didn't have any of these types of resources because of my age. I was only 12
Right.
years old. You can only go so far on your bike. And a lot of people gloss this over because, I'll see it with my little cousins. My aunt or somebody will hand them a tablet and let them play with that at the dinner table, or let them just sit in their room and play on the computer all day. And I'm like, whatever happened to having a family movie night?
Right.
Like, that whole concept does not go into people's heads anymore.
No, it blows me away. Sometimes we'll be like in line, at a restaurant or something, if it's like an order as you go. And there was one time I saw this little, probably 2 or 3 year old that was shuffling along with mom and dad, but looking at their tablet the whole entire way. And I was like, how is this kid going to know how to order something one day? Like, they'll never know how to do that. And that just like,
The anxiety of calling a pizza guy
yeah,
to get a pizza delivered to your house, and then when you open up the door, you have it cracked, and you just hand them a 20 and then walk, like, get the food.
thank you. Come again. Yeah, definitely.
I think
It's
I think there's too much, like, when it comes to like, when's the last time you and your family went out to the movies?
just actually on Friday we went and saw it.
Now, you hear that, and you gave me that response. You know what I expected you to say?
What?
I expected you to say I couldn't remember the last time,
Oh,
because
heck no.
sadly, with families nowadays, the miscommunication, all this stuff that happens, the worst thing they can possibly do is spend a minute with their family. Don't get me
Right.
wrong, you have your moments with your family that if you're in the house every single day of every single week for months, you basically someone's reaching for a butter knife at some point.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I try and explain this because I've podcast with a few people that are very close with their family, and
Yeah.
coming from a perspective where everyone was off doing their own thing, kind of whereas like you kind of be a little bit independent in a way.
Yeah.
It's weird to kind of hear because we did play the occasional board game, but it stopped, and then it just never picked back up.
Yeah.
And even then it would seem like we were forcing ourselves to do something. Like, we used to have, every kid bonds with a certain parent. Okay.
Right.
Whether it's your mother or through your father, if you are lucky enough to be living with both of them. And it's because you see bits and pieces of yourself in your kids. you know
Yes.
One kid likes to play, let's say, music or something, and you play music, so you can bond over that. And
Yeah.
for me, I didn't really have anything besides going camping with my dad, or watching the occasional scary movie, to the point where it's like now these kids are having their friends over, and now they're going and living their own life. They're becoming a little bit more, wanting to go do their own things, go over to their friend's house, and it's like next thing you know, you don't even know. You don't have that choice. It's not like when your kids are little and you can randomly just be like, "Come on, we're going to the store." No, now
Yeah.
you got to plan something out with your kids.
It's true. And it's hard, especially our son's getting to be an adult here pretty soon. And so that we're kind of in that predicament right now where we're trying to find a common ground with him where, before it was very easy. He liked to do puzzles and build marble racetracks and play Hot Wheels and stuff. And now he's works on cars and welds and stuff. So for us, like, that's not something that we've ever done in our lives. And so it's hard to find that common ground, but it's so important to try to find something to connect with, because as you get older you still want that connection with your parents.
Yeah, you don't ever. Well, the thing is, when kids get a certain age, like around my age time, they need to branch off and do their own thing.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, usually come around again, later in years, like when they become parents or when they're older and they've kind of
Mhm.
matured a little bit in a way. That's not saying I'm immature. It's just the concept of you want that freedom. I mean, I'm pretty sure you probably have some wacky story of just leaving your parents' house, going out and, experiencing your own life, your mistakes and everything you've kind of gathered around. Then you kind of came back around full circle to realize what you had.
Yeah.
And sadly, nowadays, like, kids are experiencing anxiety at such a young age. They're experiencing severe depression, suicides happening more and more and more. It's because we're
Yeah.
living in a world of disconnectivity. We're not living, you know, the like that you get on social media is it's something. It's that acceptance. It's that pat you
Yeah.
get on the shoulder, but it's
Mhm.
fake. It's not real.
Yeah.
It's not authentic. Having a conversation with a parent and sitting down and talking to them, or just a close friend, and being able to explain your problems, explain your
Mhm.
stuff, and having them kind of give you a better rationale thinking, that was more impactful than a million people on Facebook just liking one of your posts.
Oh, absolutely. And that actually is our last podcast we did was about suicide, because it's something that we've been affected by multiple times in the last couple of years. Um, my husband and I have lost friends, and then my daughter just recently lost a friend a few months ago. And so, yeah, it's a very raw and vulnerable view into what we deal with and what we've dealt with. And so you hit it right on the head right there. Like, kids don't, especially where we live, like, it's very taboo to talk about drugs or um, anything really. And so it's really unfortunate because kids don't feel like they can go have that conversation with their parents, because it's kind of like, if we don't talk about it, it doesn't exist. So you'll never be curious about it, kind of a mentality. And so it's really unfortunate and sad. Um,
Well, life is
like,
ironic in a way. I think people are very ironic in the way they act when they're young. They want to be an adult so bad. And then when you're an adult, you want to be a kid so bad.
yes.
And it's to realize is when you're a kid, you don't understand the world's problems. You didn't know what
Hmm.
the bills were. You didn't know what gas was. You didn't know what any of these things. Your only care in the world was, are you going to have peanut butter with jelly, or are you going to have peanut butter with fluff? You know,
Right.
Now it's like when you're an adult, you're looking back like, man, I miss those moments because I wasn't exposed to the real world. And the
Yeah.
problem with suicide hitting such younger kids is that exposure is hitting them now. It
Yes.
wasn't before where there was a shield. Your parents can't, your parents, like coming from your perspective, you're,
Hmm.
you're working more. You're becoming in a world where you have to work harder now because
Yeah.
getting money is not the easiest option. There's a million things wrong. Like for me, getting my diploma in college, okay, that was difficult because now I thought once I get my associate's degree, I'll be able to get any job I want. Nope. Now you need a bachelor's. Oh,
Yep.
wait. It's like, all right, let me go after my bachelor's. I guarantee you, once I get my bachelor's, it's going to be now you need a master's. I'm like, well,
Exactly.
then when does it end?
Yeah. It doesn't.
We're basically setting ourselves up for failure.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But like I want the full length of being an adult when it comes to everything but making my doctor's appointment. I still want
Yeah.
someone to do that shit for me. But it's the concept of we never want to pay our price for what we do. And you see it with parents that kind of invest themselves into their kids. There's a healthy way of doing it and there's an unhealthy way of doing it. So
Yes.
a healthy way of doing it is like, look, you're going out, you're exploring the world. I just want you to be aware of these types of things that are happening. I always kind of want to make sure you have a plan B because you never want to
Mm,
see your kids struggle.
right.
And the sad thing is now what parents do is they invest themselves like they're investing a piece of them into their kids by
Yeah.
saying, you need to do this, you need to do that. Okay.
Hmm.
If you're a kid like me that was kind of, spent a lot of his time doing his own thing, when you try and come at me with an authoritative view, I don't
Yeah.
I don't listen. I get really hard-headed with it. Like it's hard because you're trying to plan out their future and make sure that they're always going to be set in life because you don't want to
Right.
see them struggle. And like for you, have you ever struggled in your life just trying to scrape money for bills?
Yes.
How difficult has it been for you just to try and hide that from your kids?
We don't actually. Our kids are we're very open with our kids, and we've had Christmases where we couldn't afford things, so we straight out told them, you know, what was up, and so I, for us, we have always been very open in our communication with our kids. We want them to understand that life is not all about sugar and candy and rainbows. It's real life is real life, and it's going to suck sometimes. And that just makes the good parts of life even better. So yeah, we really like our kids know when we're struggling, and more than anything, it's so that they understand, if they want a new pair of shoes or if they want whatever and we can't afford it at that point in time, they understand, oh yeah, mom and dad already talked to me about this. I'll wait, or I'll go mow some lawns, or I'll go do this so I can get it myself. And so that for me growing up, I was in charge of taking care of myself that way, from 14 until I married my husband. And for me, it was a no choice thing, but for my kids, it's kind of I want them to learn how to do that, but we're there to back them up if needed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you have to let them fight for their own too.
Yeah.
They have to realize they can't just everything can't be handed in your lap. Like I
Right.
still some of my favorite moments, like my dad would walk upstairs, mom would walk upstairs, and I was playing video games. Hadn't eaten in like 2 days, basically. You just don't even think about hunger when you're playing games. And
Nope.
they would walk upstairs with like a cut up peanut butter sandwich with a little bit of Doritos and a drink, and just place it in front of me and back away slowly, like I was some type of T-Rex. Don't make any fast movements. And I saw that, and I'd be like, thank you. And then I would start playing again, and then I would look down at it and be like, wow, that was really awesome. Because
Yeah.
now that I've taken a second to step back from the games, I realize I'm on the point of starvation right now.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
it's like, but they're always aware. They're always waiting in the wings. They're always there to help you if you need it. Some kids have that benefit of having the parent there, but they never choose to call on them. You don't ever want to call on your parents when you're in a desperate time. You want to be able to call your parents just to have a good old conversation, hear their
Right.
voice again. And like with a kid, like for me, like when I get Christmas gifts, I don't want gifts, honestly. I like a lot of people say that, and it takes a true person to really mean it. Me, I want the card. I don't want the money inside. I tell them don't put the money inside. If you're
Yeah.
gonna give me money, just hand it to me. Don't do that. I'd rather read the card. I make sure that my parents, my grandparents, everybody, they circle the words they mean in the card and underline things. And
Oh,
I have them all saved up from my birthday and my Christmas. They're all in a shoebox. I have hundreds of them.
that's awesome.
And I bring up the aspect of you never know what you have until it's gone. Okay. My great grandfather passed away. I still have cards of his that I read, and I can hear his voice. And while I read
Mhm.
the cards, like, you're a you're my great grandson, and you're one of the greatest things to have. And
Mm.
I read that, and I'm like, damn, like it's him talking to me. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's not just your parents that you love, it's your family, that overall connection. But you say family, and all you think of is the fightings. But those fightings you're going to look back on, and you're going to remember, and you're going to wish you had them when they're gone.
Yeah.
Like
True.
it's difficult. Like, I know me trying to say this is like you don't really understand because I'm not a parent, but it's like I can see it from their view. I
Yeah.
really try my hardest to come from everyone's perspective when I think of things, and
Right.
I see the true intentions, I see the hope for it, but it's just difficult to try and communicate these things. Like, you gotta
Yeah.
let them be aware, like, there are drugs in this world, there are bad things in this world, but it doesn't mean the world has violence. It means that we're just captured in it right now.
Right. And that it's so important too, because my daughter and I always say, the quote, be the change you wish to see in the world, by Gandhi. And that is one thing, that you can't be a change to something that you're oblivious to. And um, so it's been cool to have some of her friends reach out and tell us, how they're doing something brave, or doing an Insta story or something of something brave they've done since we started our podcast. And so it's cool because it's bringing attention to depression and suicide, and boundaries and communication and stuff with your parents. And children. And so it's really neat to kind of see that, even just with the 5 episodes that we've done, like what an impact we're already making by being open and vulnerable to make a change.
I mean, I always chalk it up to Will Smith's song back when he was doing the DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. He goes, parents just don't understand, because from your perspective at that age, they don't. And honestly, even at my age now, I still think parents don't really understand, but they understand a lot more than you think, just like the kids do. Kids
Yeah.
are like Play-Doh. They're very formative. They learn from around you. My parents didn't need to tell me they struggled. I saw it. I saw it. I saw working 2 jobs was not fun. I saw that, they had to scrape for what they had because they made choices of not going to college or trying to do stuff to better their life because they wanted to
Mhm.
live a fun one. And I say that, and I tell them, like, I'm different than what you might think. Like, I know you think I'm just like you, but I'm 100% unique in my own way because I
Yeah.
understand these things. I'm aware of it. The best part about getting all that information was soaking it in and realizing what would happen if I did not progress with my life. I took a
Yeah.
year off when I graduated, and honestly, it was a mistake because I don't remember what I really did.
Yeah.
And I realized, like, I can sit here and work 2 jobs, but I'm going to be miserable my whole life. And this isn't what I
Mhm.
want. I want to have the days, the weekends where I can go camping. I mean, some of my best moments. I mean, imagine you're 13 years old, you're camping with your father. It's 2 o'clock in the morning and you guys are eating seafood, shrimp and crabs at 2 o'clock in the morning when you're 14 years old. That is a dream come true. For me, at least, I was like, those were some of my best moments. I'd be like, "Hey, can I borrow $20?" And my dad's like, "What do you mean borrow?" I'm like, "Can I get $20?" He's like, "Okay, sure." Yeah, he's like, "What are you gonna spend it on?" I'm like, I'm gonna spare it out through the weekend while we're at the campground." He goes, "Okay, well, that's smart," and hands it to me, knowing full well I'm going straight to the arcade and I'm gonna blow it in 5 minutes.
Yes.
Like, those are the funnest times. I used to ride my bike and come back, like, he's like, "Hey, go pick up something from the camp store." Okay, come back, have marshmallows and s'mores and just relax. Like, me and him would go searching for sticks and these types of things we call kindling just to light the fire and be able to
Yeah.
me and him, me at a young age, and just be able to hang out with my dad by a bonfire at 1 o'clock in the morning. Just me and him. No words being exchanged, just being in each other's company.
Yeah.
Some of the best moments. I mean, what do you try and do with your kids to kind of keep the link or connection still there?
Uh, so we do a lot of like dance parties in our house. We like to crank up the music and just goof off and dance around and play. We try to go up and just do like drives around with the family, enjoy the scenery that we have. And um, yeah, as I was saying earlier, just as they're getting older, it is a lot harder to find those times and areas that we can connect. But those are things that we do have in common, is enjoying, going and skipping rocks or going fishing every now and again, or um, hiking, or those kinds of things. But I think the best ones are just our dance parties that we just crank on music and just start goofing off.
Is it crazy to see bits of you or bits of your husband kind of come out of your children?
It's actually really cool. When our son was born, he looked just like my husband. And when my daughter was born, she looked just like me. But as they've gotten older, they've actually taken on more traits of the opposite. And so it's been really cool to kind of see that physical indication. There's my daughter and I still look a lot alike, but there's a lot of traits that she's taken on of my husband as she's gotten older. And so it's really neat. It's cool. And then as far as personality too, like it's fun to see the goofy, bubbly, like crazy side, I guess, of me and my husband. We're both very like random, goofy people, and so it's fun to see that in our kids. Sometimes it can be overwhelming if it's both of them being goofy and crazy at the same time, because they feed off of each other. But they're each other's best friend, so it's neat. It's neat to see and watch that relationship grow with the two of them, and them fuel each other with their goofy craziness sometimes. But
Like me
they're
and my like it's weird because my dad loves super sour foods, even though he can't handle them. But my mom loves super spicy foods. But I love them both. Like I didn't pick up a certain trait, but like my mom would be like, "Look, I just got this super hot sauce. You got to try it." And then me and her would bond over that. And then next thing you know, my dad's like, "Hey, you know what a sour onion is?"
a sour onion.
It's an onion that's been soaking, basically fermented in vinegar for like 3 to 4 days. So it is honestly pretty sour. And I'm like, it's funny because we are eating it one time. He peels them like potato chips, like you would peel an onion, he would suck on
Oh,
them, and then he would eat them that way. And then I would bite into it like an apple, and he would look at me like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you just did that." He's like, "You're just like your grandfather." I'm like, "Yeah," because like it's crazy. You get pieces of your grandparents, you
yes.
get all those aspects. Like me and my brother are half siblings, so we share the same mom. So
Mhm.
if me and my brother stand side by side, they people like back when I was a kid, you never could see the resemblance. But now that I'm older, I'm around like a couple of years behind him. But now that we're both kind of around the same age, like people say, like you guys do look a little bit alike, and we're like, that's our mom. Like because I didn't really notice it until I saw a picture of all three of us, my mom and me and my brother, and it was at Christmas Eve, and my mom was in the middle. I'm off to the left, and my brother's off to the right, and I could see the facial features. I could see the
Yeah.
resemblance. I could see it in the eyes. I can see it all. Like we all kind of look pretty similar. Obviously, having our own definitive characteristics, but
Right.
it's got to be crazy as a parent to see that. Like just either a certain activity, a certain thought, a certain emotion, a certain passion, kind of come out in your kids.
Yes. Yeah, the sassiness, like, um, kind of like an irritated look or something. It's funny, like if there's like a situation where it's like annoying or something, like a specific look if that I give or my husband gives or something, it's funny to see that come out. I totally random and not completely off subject, but my um, dad just recently found out a couple of years ago that he has two older brothers from his dad's side, and the oldest one laughs exactly like my grandpa. He looks exactly like my grandpa. He had a similar job as my grandpa, never met my grandpa. Um, and so it's really neat. And like, weirdly enough, like their knees are the same. Like if they wear shorts, their knees are the same. And so it's really interesting to kind of my grandpa had passed away, oh geez, 7 years ago. And so it's fun. We have my grandpa back, we have a version of him. So it's really neat.
It's crazy because on my Christmas, I did a podcast on Christmas Day with my long lost cousin. So my grandmom had 4 kids. Um, One of them died when he was around 20 years old of cancer, and we
Mm,
didn't know he had a kid. So we just found out about him like a couple of years ago, and we just made contact with him. And he came over, at least I met him on Christmas Day. So he's 35 years old.
mhm.
And it was weird to see because my grandma was like, you have bits of pieces of my son. Like she's meeting him and like talking to him. And I remember like he's living with us for the summer. So like being able to that whole podcast was me learning about him, me understanding him. It was like 3 hours long. It was on
Yeah.
Christmas Day. It was fueled by shrimp, crab cakes, and a lot of coffee. And it
You
was
definitely live by the ocean,
oh
that's
yeah,
for sure.
well that's how we're Ocean City, Maryland over here. So we got the ocean on one side and the bay on the other. So it's all basically seafood. And it was crazy because I was learning about him and understanding him, and like he comes from an adopted family and his whole things, and he talks about how he's picking up traits of his siblings, like kind of resembling his siblings, even though they're from completely two different backgrounds, like
Mm,
completely different parents, whole life bloodline different. And it's when we say like blood is blood, but honestly, that doesn't make it family.
yeah.
It's about the sense of connectivity and wholeness. And like
Right.
he messaged me the other day, like, dude, I love the water. It's awesome. I'm like, you understand why, right? Like your dad was a surfer. Like he like nobody could get him out of the water. That comes
Yeah.
from our side of the family. Like you might have some stuff that you connected from just your environmental influence with your adopted family, but you have this thing inside your blood that you can't explain. Like that always bothered me about people that were adopted. I'm like, you have always curiosity of why this was happening, why do I have a fondness for this and nobody in my family does.
Right.
It's it's really crazy to the concept of, people consider if you have kids, it's because you're being selfish by wanting a piece of you. I'm like, well, sometimes it's for good reason. It's for about creating life in the first place, but
Yeah.
also watching it unfold, watching it come up. It's like a story being unraveled. Like it's so curious to wonder where the end's going to be. What is the end? What are they going to do? What are they going to accomplish?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that is the coolest thing and the hardest thing all wrapped up in one. I think, you want them to be successful and you want them to be happy and in a good, safe, healthy space in their minds and everything. But ultimately, like you teach them and you guide them to do the things that you want them to do, but then they're their own person, their own individual. So it's hard. You kind of have to relinquish that control and allow them to be themselves. And that part's pretty tricky when you're first getting into that stage.
Now,
That was not my favorite transition.
what was it like watching your kids drive off for the first time?
Uh, gut wrenching, scary, terrifying.
You probably were
Um,
texting them every single minute.
so we have a rule that he has to text us whenever he gets to wherever he is. And I think it was like the second week he had his driver's license, he was driving to a local skate park and about 10 minutes drive, not too far. And he never texted me. And then all of a sudden you hear sirens after sirens after sirens. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're going right where he was going. Like, what is going on? And so I call him and he's like, oh, yeah, sorry. I just forgot to call you. I was like, dude, there's sirens everywhere. And he's like, yeah, I know. I saw the accident happen. I was right there. And I was just like, oh my gosh. Like, you didn't think for 1 second mom's going to freak out. But
Well, people
yeah,
chalk up the example. They go, I like
yeah,
as soon as I don't text my mom back, next thing I know, I'm getting a call. I'm getting like 30 missed calls. I'm getting all this stuff. I'm like, look, from my perspective, if I don't answer, I won't answer back for a couple days, and I'll just randomly send a text like, yeah, I'm fine. But I realize that whole time I'm not texting back, they're constantly worried. They're
yes.
constantly wondering what the hell's going on. Is he okay? Is he safe? Is he somewhere? You're constantly looking on the news, searching for my
Mhm.
name in an article or something, and
Yep.
you're hoping it doesn't come across, because that's a big concern nowadays. Your kids go off on their own. You never know what's going to happen. They might
Mhm.
accidentally get into a car accident. They might experience something where they're lost and you don't know. And you always have that wantingness there. It's like the same reason when you buy something and you can't find it and you really need it, you really want it, you
Right.
loved having it, and like next thing you know, it's gone. It's like, whoa. Like you're constantly you're freaking out, and that's what
Yeah.
happens when you have kids. You realize you're around these things. People consider it an 18-year investment.
Mhm.
I'm like, it is an 18-year investment, but you're considering it like it's a loan, something that's going to pay you back. It's
Right. Yeah.
it's something that you decided to do with
Mhm.
like someone you care about, and you took the time to raise these things and watch them grow up, knowing that one day they're going to end up leaving you.
Yeah. And I don't think that you ever for me, like my whole life, I just wanted to be a mom and a wife. And so for me in my head, like they would just always be around. And so, I mean, I know that they will still always be around, but in a different way. And so for me, that at like probably about 2 years ago, um, that's when it was really like getting more real. I was out of all of my friends the first to have kids and stuff. So majority of my friends' kids are like 6th grade and younger, and mine are getting close to adulthood. So, um, yeah, so it's interesting to kind of be in this space right now because my friends, some of them do have kids that are getting close to my kids' ages and stuff, and they're hitting me up saying, "Oh my heck, what did you do when you felt like this?" and stuff. So I'm glad I've experienced it so I can help other people go through it, but it's definitely not fun being the first through the finish line.
Yeah, they have they always have the example, the first kid's always the test run, kind of figures out
Yes.
what you're supposed to do. Then the second one, you have a better understanding. By your fourth time, you're already a pro. You know what's going to happen. I always like. I want to ask you this: do you have a superpower when it comes to your kids screaming and you just not like you're just totally ignoring it? Because I experienced this in a store. A mother's watching their kid throw a temper tantrum and just glossing over the fact. I'm like, how do you not lock them in a hot car?
Do you know what's so terrible? So it must be a superpower for parents for their own kids. Because for me now, like if anybody's kids are like screaming or anything, I can't stand it. So I don't know if it's a superpower. I don't know, but my husband was in the military, and so when he would deploy, I would live with my in-laws, and my mother-in-law would always come home every day with a new toy. And if she didn't bring my kids a new toy, she would take them to the store to buy them a new toy every single day. And so when we moved away back for to prepare for my husband to come home, um, my daughter was probably 3 years old, and she freaking screamed through Target for like 25 minutes, but I had to get stuff done. And so I'm sure people looked at me like I was psycho crazy and probably were thinking, shut that kid up. But I didn't want to give in to her because then she would know that if she did that, I would grab her something or walk out of the store and she would win. So I didn't want her to ever have that upper hand.
I watched a comedy where a guy was talking about his mom and that briefing that he would give him before they went into a store. And I was like, I experienced that on a daily basis. My mom would take me to the store. And next thing I know, she's telling me, before we get in the store, you better not act a fool in the store. You better not freak
Mhm.
out. You better not do anything. I want to make
Keep
sure
your
we're
hands in your pocket.
exactly. Look at the floor. Don't look at anything. Don't ask for
Yeah.
nothing. Don't do anything. And then at the ending, she always wrapped it up with, and I swear, if that shopping cart hits the back of my heel, 2 chops to the throat. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it made sense because I experienced it the other day when I was with my little cousin and he's pushing the shopping cart. He went straight up the back of my heel. And I immediately, out of this tremendous amount of pain I experienced and this murderous intent that I turned around and looked at him with, I realized every memory I ever had of going into a grocery store and
Mhm.
ramming the back of my parents' heel with a shopping cart.
Yep. Yep.
And I told him, I was like, "Look, you gotta be more careful, gotta focus, okay? I don't wanna get angry, but I don't want this happening again." He goes, "I'm so sorry, I'll make sure it doesn't happen again." Next thing I know, I start walking, not even a minute later, bam, right in the back of my heel. I'm like, dude."
Yep. Yep.
It's those moments that you look back on where at the time you wanted to strangle them, but you love them. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember running off into a store, hiding under coat racks. My mom freaking out, looking for me. My dad looking for me, like, "Where you at, man? Like, come on, stop playing these games." And I thought it was just a big joke. And I was like, now I realize it from their perspective. And I see, people when I go out to the store and their kids are doing the same thing. Like, I'm like, it's a tremendous responsibility having your kids and watching them grow up and making sure that
Mhm.
they're protected from all the dangers. But it's also the best thing for a parent to understand that you can't control every single influence that happens to the kid.
Exactly.
It's a hard kind of realization, but I think what's happening nowadays is you're getting the form of lazy parenting where, you know, they can just shove a tablet in their face and let them kind of conk out for a little bit because it's easier than dealing with the temper tantrum. Well,
Yep.
having kids is not easy, you know.
Mm-mm.
It's a never ending process. Honestly, till the day you die, you're going to constantly
Mhm.
be trying to protect your kids.
Yep.
And it's for a mom, honestly, I give you the most amount of credit because people always chalk up the example like well, at least for me, like I have friends that want to be a stay-at-home dad, that want to be a stay-at-home mom. Like that's one of the toughest jobs. You're doing so much, you're teaching so much, you're
Yeah,
learning so much. It's an everyday working process.
definitely.
I think it definitely should be paid. I know that much. Probably should be paid more
Yeah,
than any other job out here.
definitely. I definitely do not disagree with you on that. I always say, I was a stay-at-home mom until my kids were in elementary, like well into elementary. And then I started working. And if I could flip that, I would do that in a heartbeat. I would much rather have been a working mom while they were little than as they're older, because what they're going through is so much bigger, and they need me more than when they were little. Uh, of course, they did need me when they were little, but if I could reverse it, that's what I would do, because they need me present when they're going through really hard stuff. And granted, most kids don't go through suicide after suicide after suicide with friends and family and stuff. So our life situation is much different than most. But yeah, if I could reverse that, I totally would.
See, that's coming. You want to deal more with the hormonal side of the teenagers, the
Hmm.
angst, all that anxiety they're getting because they think that, oh, Billy didn't answer my phone call and now he doesn't want to go to prom. It's like
Right.
those are the biggest issues for them, and you got to
Mhm.
try and highlight to them like this is not going to matter, not even 2 weeks from now. It's not
Right.
even going to be a thing. There's going to be a whole new problem. Whether you're, the hair cuttery person messed up your hair, or you didn't get that like on Facebook. Like it's not going to matter. What's going to matter is, are you going to have a home? Are you going to have these types of things? You're trying to show them. You're basically making them prioritize their problems.
Yes.
I mean, it's a good way of teaching. I mean, what steps would you have to give to someone out there that is kind of disconnected from their family?
Oh man, I really, the biggest thing is just being open to communication, especially like when you're not feeling most open to communicating. Um, I watched a lot of my friends when I was growing up. They couldn't communicate with their parents because their parents were under a shiny bubble, and so they went off the deep end. Or I had friends that tried to communicate with their parents, but their parents played the blame game and just blamed them for everything. And so they went off the deep end. And my parents were very lenient. I had no curfew, I had no nothing. Like I made my own rules basically. And I was a good kid, and I didn't really do anything that I shouldn't, because I'm a rule follower and that's just how I am. Um, but I had too much free reign. There were a lot of times in my life that I could have gotten in a lot of trouble, a lot of influences around me. And so, but I couldn't communicate that with my parents. I felt like there was that disconnect where they didn't, I was the youngest of five kids, or I am the youngest of five kids. And so I just kind of always felt like by the time I needed to communicate with them in a older, more mature way, they were, not that my parents were old, but they raised four other kids. And um, so just that ability to communicate is, I think, number one. Um, it's just so important, and just being open to talking about the hard stuff. Like you cannot think that if you don't talk about sex that your kids aren't going to be curious about sex, and smoking and drugs and drinking and all of those things. Like if you don't talk about it, then they're going to hear it from somewhere else. They're going to find it somewhere else. Internet is a wonderful place to find all the things that are not legitimately the right facts. So I don't know. I think it just comes down solely to like communication and being willing to be open and raw and vulnerable, Our kids know that we got married when I was 16. My husband was barely 19, um, and had my son when I was 17. And so, yeah, they know everything about us, and that's how they know that when we say, this is a mistake, or this is, why you shouldn't do this, we have the past and the history to back it up. It's not just a threat or a worry. It's a, okay, this is what I did. This is my consequence. And, now you can make your choice more educated than I did, kind of a thing.
Not only finding common ground, but being able to be connected. It's the best
Yes.
form of connection is open.
Yes.
You always want to make sure they have that opportunity to reach out to you if they need to, but understand you need to give them their space.
Yeah. My daughter sent me a text the other day. Her and her friends were doing a mom survey to see how parents or how the moms reacted to the question, if I came home with a hickey, what would you do?
Slap
And
'em, slap 'em.
I know, right? So my first thing was question you. Obviously you're in a situation where things got a little bit further than what you may have expected. So I would be curious as how far things got.
You were just
And
playing with the vacuum cleaner. It's okay.
yeah, exactly right. And she wrote LOL, okay, and then one of her friends got grounded for asking the question. Um, a few of them got in trouble for asking the questions. A few of them are now unable to be with their boyfriend or girlfriends, um, because they asked the question without an adult around. And all of her friends were like, wait, your mom's not mad at you? And she's like, no, that's why I can go to her. I can tell her things and know that it's okay. And I said to my daughter, I said, the thing is, oh gosh, I think restriction equals rebellion is what I said,
That's 100% true.
you know, and it, it just blows my mind. Like these parents just are so oblivious to it. And it just breaks my heart because the kids need to be able to, like one girl's like, well, I have my makeup with me all the time so I can cover them up. And so it's just like, I don't know. Yeah.
My grandma made the best statement at Thanksgiving dinner. She said, "What's all those funny marks on your neck?" Knowing full damn well what they were.
Like, what you talking about, grandma? I don't
I
know
was
what you're
like, "Oh
talking about.
yeah, just got into a fight and yeah, just you vampire or
I
something. I
just,
don't know."
yeah. Yeah. If you're open with them and you communicate with them, they know that they can come talk to you about the hard stuff. And that's really like, my daughter, after losing her friend to suicide, she fell down from being goofy, bubbly, happy, fun to sleeping all day and very depressed and starting to contemplate suicide herself. This was just a few months ago. And she knew that she could come to us. And it just broke my heart to think of the kids that don't have that connection. And it's no wonder that teenagers are taking their lives. And it's sad. That's communication and connection is so freaking powerful and needed in teenagers' lives, and they need to know that they can come to you.
They have to feel heard too. I think,
Yeah.
like one of my buddies on my very first episode, his name's Skyler. Like he's one of my best friends. He's practically my brother. He is my brother. He's always there for me when I need him. His mom's always there for me. I call her mom. And it's because they lost somebody. They lost his oldest brother to opioid addiction.
Hmm.
And he was like, I might have lost a brother, but died that night. I also gained one. And he was,
Right.
and he has a room set up for me if I ever want to move over there. And, it's crazy because like they understand what I like, how I am, and they understand I'm not in all this connectivity, playing board games, all this type of stuff, even though it's cool to kind of fantasize about it, but it's not something I ever feel like ever doing. And
Yeah.
they always invite me when they have like family dinners and stuff, and it's always nice to know that option's always on the table because it doesn't matter if they're your blood or not. It's still the aspect of caring for one other person.
Exactly.
Well, I appreciate you, Faith, doing the podcast. I know it's kind of late,
Yeah.
but it was awesome being able
Oh,
to talk to you.
yeah. No, I appreciate you being so flexible with my crazy the last couple of weeks. It's just been just draining, but I am so glad we were able to finally connect. That's fabulous. And I'm so grateful that you reached out to me.
Yeah, well, Momma Bear Connects. Well, I had to connect to Mama Bear first.
That's true. I
Well,
mean, you're never going to know how awesome I am if you don't.
exactly. You gotta have faith, Faith.
That's right.
That's a double play on words. I get a sticker for that one.
I know. You get the gold star.
Yes. Well, I wanna give you a minute here at the end to be able to promote your podcast so people can find your awesome content
Okay.
whenever you're ready.
All right. So, Momma Bear Connects is a podcast all about parenting, teenagers, different views on hard life subjects. We are right now on Google Podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Radio Public. Oh, there's, I think, a few more. And then anchor.fm. Also, you can find us there. It's very raw and vulnerable material. My daughter feels like it's very important um, to share a teenager's view on what is important to a teenager during hard times and not hard times. So yeah, just it's an amazing opportunity for us to share our life experience and hopefully help other people to connect with their family members, their parents, their kids, whatever, in a healthier way. Hopefully, help reduce some of the sad that's going on in the world.
Well, thank you so much, Faith. It was awesome having you on.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate you.